A special select, I'll call tonight's special select board meeting to order. It's April 8th, and we are here primarily for a special meeting to address, again, the primary focus is on the proposed short-term rental question, ordinance, issue, whatever you want to identify it as. We are thrilled to see as many people who are here tonight, both in person and on Zoom. Thank you for joining us. Before we go into public comment, I just want to, I think this may help explain some of the questions that we've received and to tell you a little bit about the process. So I'd like to go through that now, and then we'll open it up for public comment, okay? So here's how we got here. For those of you, and I see some of y'all who are here and some of you on Zoom, we had a couple of meetings. There was 2 falls ago, the Georgetown Affordable Housing Initiative had an informational meeting at GHS. Some of y'all were there. And one of the primary issues was discussing what we've all been concerned about, which was affordability to continue living here in Georgetown, or for younger people, newer families, newer residents, existing residents, of course, to continue to be able to afford. And then some of the concerns about the resources that might implicate in our community. The planning board and the select board and GAHI had a couple of conversations during our select board meetings talking about that issue. And it was agreed that the planning board would send out a short-term rental survey. And it went out to everybody in the community. And we got about 500 responses back, 450 to 500, which was a great response considering. And so we have some data that we received from that, and the planning board obviously analyzed that data. And then it was brought back to us in October of 2025. And at that time, we asked the planning board to look at that data, that we would consult legal, and that we would also, and we asked them to draft a registry and an accompanying ordinance for consideration by the town to see whether the data would align with some kind of community response to the concerns that had been outlined in a couple of these meetings, okay? From there, the planning board, as you know, has drafted a proposed ordinance that is addressing short-term rentals through what is anticipated to be a registration or a permitting process. It also, the ordinance, as you know, it's a proposed ordinance, touches on safety measures, addresses the resource concerns, primarily water, land impacts, and the housing impacts, which again continues to be an issue. And early on, we received some feedback, okay, not enough. So we took the unusual step over a weekend to ask and post then on social media and through the Age Friendly network, through Singing Bridge, on the town's website, asking for your feedback. We had some comments, and now we have many comments, and we thank you. We appreciate that. That's helpful to us. We have a job to do here, and we need information from the community. And so we have that. We didn't have a lot. And so we stepped back and we said, how can we retool this process? How can we engage more of the community? And so we've now slowed things down. This has not gone the usual process right to a public hearing. After some community feedback, we've added this meeting. We didn't have this meeting on before, and we added it because we think it's important to hear from you. And some of us are not, we know there's information on social media, but we're not always looking at that. And we want to address any confusion that there may be and any questions that there may be. So tonight, we're going to map out for you the process. This is not the large informational meeting, and I'll talk about that in a second. And so we've received many comments, and we've now incorporated this informational meeting, which is on April 28th, right here at the school gym, just like town meeting is, at 6:30. That is when you won't be limited in your comments as much as we may need to limit you tonight in public comment. And that is because we do have an agenda to get through, and we want to continue explaining the process to you. We have a couple of other items in this additional select board meeting. And that informational meeting on April 28th will be um, will be to show you that we are listening and that we want all feedback before the process goes any further. Okay. One of the things that we continue to hear is you're not being transparent. We're doing everything that we can to explain and give you information. If there's something that we haven't given you, please just ask, because we're here to serve. And that's really how we feel, particularly on this issue. And so that's why it's great that you're here. It helps us make the decision that we need to make. And there are hard decisions for the community long term about our sustainability, including around housing and our natural resources. All right. So this is a public meeting. The 28th is a public meeting. They will both be hybrid. June 13, town meeting. That's a public meeting. Everyone's welcome. And we every year ask you to please be involved in these town decisions. No town decision will be jammed down your throat. Nothing will be rushed. It will be an intentional and methodical process, whether that is short-term rental ordinances, any of the other ordinances that are up for review, any initiative that you want to see. None of that is going to be jammed down your throat. That's not what we're here to do. Okay. So it's important also to remember that this is a draft ordinance. It's not a final proposed ordinance. The planning board has worked very hard based on the survey to create a document, and they knew there would be feedback. They're also here, there, and they're here to hear from you as well. And we need to address some significant policy questions, and those include what's the breadth of this ordinance, how it affects different types of property owners, how will it be enforced, what resources are going to be implicated here, and whether the provisions strike the right balance between supporting all of our short-term rental owners, our town resources, and the protection of both of our seasonal and our year-round residents. That's really important to us to balance all of those needs. And so we recognize that there are a lot of strong perspectives on this issue. That's why we scheduled the meeting for the 28th. And we want you to review this draft, ask questions, and provide input before we make the decision that we have to make. We've not made a decision. I want to be clear about that. We have not made a decision. That's why we built in 2 extra meetings on this issue. And we have to decide whether or not this proposed ordinance or anything related to short-term rentals will go on this year's town warrant. Is that clear? We've not made that decision. Okay. So our goal is to make sure that any ordinance brought forward is done in a thoughtful and community engaged process. So we, again, appreciate you being here. We want to hear from you. Obviously, we know that there are a lot of opinions about this, so we're going to try to get to everybody, and we're going to do it in the best, respectful, efficient process as we can. All right. Thank you so much. Let's open it up for public comment, and we'll start in the room, and I'll go left to right. Is there anybody in this room that would like to make a public comment? We may need to limit you to 2 minutes simply because we won't limit you on the 28th. So please just keep that in mind, because we may have a lot of hands over there as well. If there's not a lot of hands in here, then we may not need to limit it. But remember, this is not your only time by any stretch. Okay? All right. Who would like to go first? Okay. All right. Chris, go ahead.
Chris Dumas.
Thank you.
The 118 Old School House. I just think this is a huge overreach. I think this has been done in a complete silo without a lot of input from people that have short-term rentals. And I think when I read the purpose of this, I think you put the first part last. I think there's a big push for, this housing thing to have affordable housing and all this, but I will say, given what I do for a living and given what I do at work every day and the towns that I've seen that have limited short-term rentals and brought in these short-term housing and brought in these like affordable housing things, it's going to bring in a group of folks that's going to probably make us need a police department. It's going to bring in a group of folks that don't value what we value. And I think this is a huge overreach on my family's ability to stay here long-term. You talk about codes enforcement officer regulating and running all this stuff. Individual landowners are responsible for their properties. Individual landowners should be taking the responsibility to make sure their trash is taken out, that fire extinguisher is accessible, that they have proper insurance. Individual landowners take the responsibility. By the town stepping in now and issuing these permits, you're immediately opening up the town for liability. Oh, the town issued the permit, we'll sue the town too. Now the town gonna pay for attorneys. Now the town's gonna have additional attorney fees, additional costs. How much is that gonna raise our taxes? So I think this is a huge overreach. It's a step in the wrong direction, and I think it's way outside of Georgetown's long-term culture. Said my piece.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chris.
Thank you.
All right.
Well-
Anyone, Tiffany?
Tiffany Dumas, 118 Old Schoolhouse Road. I'm a native here. How many generations? 10, 11? This is the ability for my family to stay here. We have 2 additional rental properties, not to line our own pockets, but to provide a legacy for our children. We want to see our children live here as well. I have the privilege of living here because my parents thought enough to build another house for us to stay here. Do you think I can afford a $500,000 house? Do you think there's a $500,000 house to be bought in this town? Okay? I want to see my kids live here. And if I have to rent my houses in order to pay them, because I have a humble job, because we are public servants in a lot of ways, then we shouldn't be limited to how we're able to use our property. Now, I realize that you are trying to make this land safe, that you are trying to provide adequate water and sewer access. But I'm telling you, there are 44 people who took this survey that said that they would not rent their property long-term. Okay? 44 out of 99 property owners that said that they are able to rent their houses in short-term rental. If you take 44 houses off of the market in a short-term rental because people don't need the money, let that answer your questions about who runs the town around here. 44 rentals do not need the money to stay in business here or to live here. Okay? I need it. This is how my kids are gonna go to college. I don't wanna be told that I cannot rent my places short term. I do not take advantage of it. I have a 3-bedroom house. How many people come? 5. Okay. I don't wanna rat on my neighbors. But they're summer people. How many people do I see at my summer people's house stacking their houses as full as they can get them? And when mud shows up on my water line, what happens? They're obviously running, 12, 14 people in a house right next door to me with a 20-foot perimeter of where their well was just put in. And they're not renting. So therefore, I don't think we have a short-term rental problem. I'd also like to see how many problems were announced last year in regard to short-term rentals, because I've been advised there's been nothing in regards to problems that have been announced in this town for short-term rentals. So I'm just saying my piece here because I think we're creating a bigger problem. If Indian pointers and Kennebec pointers are, I'm just saying that because I know that that's a big summer population. If short-term rentals, the 44 say that they're not going to rent short-term anymore, where are those renters going to go? They're either gonna get stacked into the homes that the summer people already own, and those resources are gonna be double taxed. And there's gonna be an empty house that was a short-term rental right next door. So,
Thank you, Tiffany. Tyler, we need to let somebody in, please. Thanks. I'll try to get your attention. Is there anybody else in the room? Yes, Chris.
I'd like to,
Chris White, sorry.
yes, I'd like to know, how you think this ordinance is actually gonna create affordable housing. That's somewhat of an illusion. I mean, if we want affordable housing, if you wanna look at the long term, it's just gonna be more expensive. Still, it's not gonna be affordable. Now, if the town wants to give land to create affordable housing, that'd be wonderful, right? But there is no landowner that's gonna not get what they can. I mean, you'd have to start talking about like restricting the rentals and things like that. The rent, what do they call it? Rent,
stabilized.
rent control, yeah. I mean, it's delusional.
To be
It sounds
clear,
good. It sounds really good to say, let's create affordable housing. And resources are being used. A lot of us use rainwater and we have our own overboard discharge. I mean, you know, the dump. So some cans get thrown in the trash, you know, what are you gonna do?
to be clear, the select board has not said that these are gonna create or solve any problems. There were
But it seems.
the initial
premised
concerns,
on- It
okay?
seems all premised on that.
The
You,
initial concerns.
Marcus Headley,
Yes,
Georgetown,
yes,
you introduced this by saying that this was brought about by an initiative to create affordable housing.
it's to address, that was one of the concerns that were
So,
raised by the Gahi initiative.
so I personally don't do short-term rentals, but I have long-term rentals. I have one that's been sitting empty for 5 months, almost no applicants. 2 years ago, I would have had dozens of applicants. The economy changes, it revolves. I also come from Britain. In my hometown in Britain, they have addressed this exact problem. It's a tourist community. They have done it differently. They've raised taxes on short-term rental properties in an effort to create affordable housing. The net result is that those people have taken it off the market. They can't afford the taxes, which are 4 times higher than normal taxes. So what are they doing? They're selling the property. Who's buying the property? The local lobster man isn't buying it. He can't afford it because it's going for 1.5 million to an out-of-state person. So what they've done is they've reduced tourism dollars in the town because tourists aren't coming. They've increased summer residents who come periodically and don't really put any input into the town. You've got houses sitting empty all winter long. You're talking about fire extinguishers and smoke detectors in this ordinance. Why should short-term rentals be dictated to have fire extinguishers and smoke detectors and not full-time residents or long-term rentals? Why? Why short-term rentals? You're talking about water resources. We live in an age of the internet. Short-term rentals primarily on Airbnb, websites like that. It's self-governing. You don't have water, you have a septic that's overflowing, you're gonna get bad reviews. You don't have clean silverware, you don't have clean bed sheets, you got bed bugs, you're gonna get bad reviews.
Yep.
You're gonna be out of business.
Yeah.
You don't need a codes enforcement officer who's got enough work to do already to go around and say, oh, your septic's leaking. And if it is leaking, the short-term rental owner wants to keep running as a short-term rental, he's gonna address that. He's gonna fix his septic. He's gonna get a better well. Why do we have to govern something that's been running for 50 years or longer without problems?
Thank you, Marcus. Yes, Chris.
Chris Martin, live on Martin Road, ironically. Yeah, what a coincidence.
Yeah, there you go.
So I share the same concerns that everybody else addressed here 100%. But the other comment kind of concern I'd have is I've listened to the rationale behind this of affordability, which I think has been addressed, but resources. So we talk about water and I have some experience with water. And I'd like to know where the study was done that we are anywhere near the capacity of what the groundwater of Georgetown can supply.
Amen.
I would say based off my experience, we're nowhere near. Georgetown is very underpopulated. So I think we have people spouting off things just to make it sound like a good point. Oh, scare everybody, we're gonna run out of water. Georgetown's about as close to running out of groundwater as I don't know where, but I would at least encourage the town before they're going to make before they're gonna make claims that Georgetown is taxed and somehow short-term rentals are taxing Georgetown's groundwater, whether that's even really a thing, or is it just something that's being said? And we talk about resources like the transfer station. So the transfer station, as far as I know, and correct me if I'm wrong, you need to be a property owner and a taxpayer in Georgetown to have a transfer term.
Yes.
How are short-term rentals even getting in there? They don't have that access to that. And if they are getting in there, then the people at the transfer station aren't doing their jobs to stop them.
Amen.
It's that simple. I know, I mean, that's just the way it is. You have to get a tag. You can only get a tag a certain way. So I'm concerned that I share the same thing about affordability. I think if you look at the status of the homes that are being short-term rented in Georgetown, they're not affordable homes. None of them, if they even went on the market for sale, would be considered an affordable home.
Mhm.
Most of them are on the ocean, So there's that. Then I share your concern about long-term rentals. Georgetown's not a great long-term rental location. I have one. I'm switching out renters right now. The damage that's sustained in long-term rental homes is far exceeds short-term rental homes. The other question I have is about enforcement on this. When you talk about the code enforcer, Georgetown doesn't even have an occupancy permit. We can't tell anybody, I could go on my property and build whatever and live in it, and no one can tell me I can't, because we don't have occupancy permits. Anybody can, I could bulldoze my house and build a teepee and live in it, and no one can tell me I can't live in it. We don't have occupancy permits. But now all of a sudden, we're going to give the code enforcer some sort of authority to go around to short-term rentals and knock on doors and inspect homes. Is that it? And I'm just asking this, is that even legal based off our current structure of no code enforcement? So I just think we've really put the cart before the horse here. I'm just thinking about all these things, statements that have been made that I don't even know that they're true, or that we've done the research to find out if they're true. So I really would encourage that we do a lot deeper research into this before it goes any further at all.
Yeah.
Thank you, Chris.
Yeah.
Yeah, John.
John Thibodeau, Sigwinland Road. Our situation, to be individualized here, is that we built an addition onto our house for my in-laws. My in-laws since passed, and then my parents moved in, but in the interim, we used it as an Airbnb. And it went flawlessly. And if you think about the consumption of resources, when are people renting here? Almost always, if it's gonna be during the summer or the warmer months in here. They're not using it even anywhere near the amount of resources that a year-round, long-term renter is gonna be using it. The other thing is that it was approved to be an in-law apartment. I went through the planning board, went through the whole process, and now it's suddenly not gonna be good for a rental property. That part was really kind of strange to see in the proposed ordinance, because what changed? I'm renting it long-term to my own family, and then I was renting it short-term to people on Airbnb. If, God forbid, my mother's no longer with us and I need to rent it again, what I've read says that ordinance will not allow that. Which is just, it's frustrating, because that was also how we were able to afford to live on this beautiful island.
Yeah.
Thanks, John. Anybody else?
Oh, sorry, no, you go, I've already done.
Yeah. Oh, and remember, this is not your only chance, y'all. So the 28th, and you can say it all again on the 28th. We'll be happy to hear it then. Go ahead, Clara.
Clara Evans, formerly Brown. I'm down on Kennebec Point Road. I am part of the KPA Association. We govern our, we have guidelines that we follow, but it's not town overreach. So I think I have like a couple small points that I just feel like I really need to make. One, I did send an email. I have no idea if anybody has received it, because I haven't gotten a receipt of any kind of, whether it's been received or read at all. So I want that set on the record.
We did receive it, and I recall it well, so.
Great.
Yes, and I apologize. We've gotten a lot, and I apologize you did not get an acknowledgement.
Yeah, it would be good, just an
But-
auto receipt,
Sure.
it's been received.
Yes,
That's good feedback, thank you.
yeah.
So back in 2014, when I moved home to Georgetown, to where my family has been since 1865, I started renting my house, which is Overlook, used to be Camp Overlook for anybody who is familiar with the history. Our house is not a house that I could afford in 2014, especially. I'm like 26 years old. And the only way that I could fix that house up and be where I am now, where I'm living in it with my husband and my two children who go to this school, is by renting. During that time, as part of my service back to the town, I had started a rental directory. Every networking connection I made with people in town who rented, if they wanted, they were placed on this directory. It shared information about their rental, their contact, when they like to rent, And I brought it to the town and I said, I think you should have a directory of rentals so that when somebody calls and says, I'd love to stay in Georgetown, where can I stay? Or when another rental is double booked and they need help, the town might be able to assist. The town had no interest. It was like, oh, okay. Zero interest. And I did that for several years while I was renting. I updated it every year and I sent it to the town. I think it's very interesting now that all of a sudden there's an interest in knowing where all the rentals are. I also am questioning the whole approach of, and this is what I've heard, that in order to have a directory, you have to have an ordinance. Well, I would like it to be considered that we have a voluntary directory in this town where we don't have to have an ordinance, we don't have to have a maintained directory by the town, but that the good people in the town who are interested in sharing that they have short-term rentals could volunteer that information to the town. Safety. Another thing that I think is important is that as part of my service during that time, I brought in off-island rental experts. We did a seminar with Carlos and his crew over at the meeting house where we tried to share safety, important safety steps to take if you are going to be a VRBO or an Airbnb or whatever. And the largest safety concern in coastal rentals is structural integrity. Your docks, your decks, your porches, which is not addressed in this ordinance. So I think that it falls very short on being able to say that this is all about public safety. You're not addressing the number one public safety concern. Phippsburg, I did a deep dive into Phippsburg, where you have a huge portion of tourists in a coastal community very close to us. They don't even have a short-term ordinance right now. They're entertaining, they're having public sessions, they're discussing things, but when we compare ourselves to Phippsburg, we're gonna jump the gun and go impulsively into some sort of an ordinance when Phippsburg doesn't even have it under control yet. I mean, it seems very reactive and impulsive to me. The other thing that I would like more information about, maybe at the next meeting, is what else was looked at, because there's a lot of strategies out there that we could be really creative with in our little town. For example, we could incentivize instead of be punitive to the locals in the town. We could have a tiered system that protects locals who have seasonal homes, who are protecting their families and protecting their generations to come on the island. We don't have to be like Portland. We don't have to be like Bar Harbor. We're jumping into something that's going to hurt people in the town. And then I just agree with everything else that's been said tonight, so.
Thanks, Claire.
Also, I mean, the safety police, right? The insurance companies are really tight in the news on us right now anyway. I mean, I've had to rebuild egress decks and posts and roofs and, I mean, or no insurance. So I mean, that, we don't need two sets of police.
Another thing I would really love to add, I attended that meeting 2 years ago. Was it it's over 2 years ago now.
Yeah, a little.
And I do have to say, I too, having a long-term rental that has also sat and been publicized, sat empty for 5 and 6 months now. There are many long-term rentals here on the island that are sitting unused because unfortunately, the rise of inflation to maintain these properties, I've put on a septic tank, I've put on a roof, I've put on a new front porch, I've jacked my house up. How many tens of thousands of dollars? Probably 80 that just came out of my pocket in 5 years. The number one problem with the meeting that I had, this is stuff coming out of when we were just awakening out of COVID. We are looking at all of the people who rushed to our beautiful little island for freedom and fresh air. And they were jacking up the need for long-term housing. Okay, so great. Everybody's rushing for freedom and fresh air. And now we no longer have that problem. The other problem that we're going to have with long-term rentals is the maintenance cost. Not only did my taxes just go up another $800 or $900 for 2 of my 3 properties, but if we start putting ordinances and fees and licensing on top of things, I just did a little research, and some of the main places like Bar Harbor, Portland, Camden, those places all are big towns. They have big ordinances. It's $350 to $1,000 per year, and some places are even $2,000 per property each year to obtain these licenses. I pay $1,900 in insurance on one rental property.
That's right.
If I have to pay $1,000 extra for a short-term rental licensing, okay, that's going on my short-term pricing because I'm not absorbing it. My insurance is going up yearly. My taxes are going up yearly. I might as well be out of business because nobody's gonna rent a house down here anymore for $2,000. Those days are long gone. Five Islands, Georgetown, we are not budget travelers here. We are a retirement community. We are big 401ks. We are tourists with a little extra money in our pocket. We are not building long-term rentals for people to live here all the time because there's nowhere to work. And guess what? If we don't have people like tourists to come in here and spend money at our little Georgetown Pottery and spending money at the Georgetown store and spending money at the Robin Hood Marina and the Osprey and the Five Islands Farms and the Five Islands Lobster Co-op, we're all out of business. So long-term renting, we need to be very, very considerate and very choosy about how this goes because people can't afford it.
Point towards the transfer station and police in the transfer station.
Okay, and Marcus, I don't wanna cut you off too much, but I do have people who haven't spoken
Go ahead.
yet. Okay, thank you, I appreciate that. Luke, in the back, go ahead, Luke Seelier.
Hey, sorry.
Please
Come
call.
on up, Luke, because we want folks out there to hear you.
Hey, Stefan. I just wanted to add to that, I think this was all formed, out of the need for long-term affordable rental. I think that's where this all began, and I don't think this ordinance really attacks that. I sent a letter to you guys with some recommendations, but a couple of things on that letter, that maybe the planning board could look at would be, maybe to do some special zoning in this town for multi-units for dense communities so that the builder could actually build something that's affordable. And that actually could put more than one property in closer, instead of, one property per 2 acres. Another thing that would help long-term rentals is if you eliminated property taxes for long-term rentals as an incentive. That would be something the town could do to kind of encourage long-term rentals. And the town, I'm sure, has some land that's not developed that it owns. The town could lease out some land, 50-year lease to someone that wanted to build some, community or a neighborhood. And then build a couple of small houses. I think there's things that the planning board could do and the town could do that would be focused on long-term rentals as opposed to short-term rentals, because short-term rentals aren't helping the long-term rental issue. We gotta give the long-term rental people some leeway and some benefits, I think. So,
If you can.
Thank you, Luke.
that's it.
Anybody else?
I have
Yes, go ahead.
something. I agree with Yana,
Yeah.
Sheehan,
Yeah.
Marks on Road. I have one point. I agree with everything that everyone has said, and words have been taken right out of my mouth. Everything brilliant I was gonna say has been said. But one thing that I would like to say is that it also takes jobs away from some of the local people that do the turnarounds and mowing and repair and things like that. It takes jobs away from some of the folks that live here, been here for a long time. That's the only thing I'd like to add to that, if we had long-term rentals, which I'm one of the 44 that would not do long-term rental, because A, I can't afford it, B, I don't want my property destroyed, and I can sell it and then sustain myself. This was my retirement gig. And we built it for that purpose, 12 years ago, and up and running. I just retired last month, and now my retirement gig is kind of not looking a little bit shaky. And, you know, I just feel that also as far as the resources, I don't see why long-term rentals would use less resources than us doing 5 months of a weekly rentals. I don't see why that would deplete more water or whatever we're. So, yeah, that's just all I wanted to do.
Thank you, Jan.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Yes, Willa Abo.
Hope to be really brief. I can think of reasons why short-term rentals should be regulated. You see communities all over the world that have a problem with short-term rentals. I'm not saying this is one of them, but I can understand philosophically why people would be concerned about this and want to think about it. I think any good policy is going to protect the people who live in the town and their livelihoods and prevent them from being exploited by people from the outside. And I don't think this policy does that as written. I think it punishes the people who are currently doing it, members of our community who are operating long-term rentals, and it's not doing anything to prevent outsiders from gobbling up property to use for short-term rentals. It's not really doing anything in the service of protecting our community from those kinds of activities. So I feel like I'm supportive of the sentiment of trying to at least understand the issue and maybe make common sense provisions to protect our community from exploitation by short-term rentals. But that's not what we're looking at here. We're looking at the opposite. We're looking at making things more difficult for people who are trying to live here and make an income. So I would, maybe a different version of this I might support, but as it's written now, I can't. So.
Yeah, thank you, Will. All right.
And Susie Wren does have a hand up on
Great.
the screen.
All right, so I'm gonna leave the room. And there is one more public comment at the end, okay? But I just want to remind you that it will be important, I think, for you to also speak at the 28th. On the 28th, we will have our code enforcement officer. We will have our planning board chair, Bob Trebona, and Rufus Brown, also from the planning board, and potentially others. But they'll be able to address some of the questions you have. Chris, you had some questions about the data. There was some data there, but I'm not the expert on the data, so that's all I'm gonna say, except to let you know that that would be the time for questions and answers, okay? Great, go ahead, Susie, please.
This is a short-term rental proposal, not a long-term rental proposal. So that's what we're talking about. The definition of short-term rentals in the new ordinance, not long-term rentals. So that's what the planning board worked on. That's what the select board is looking at. The select board has not decided on what the fee, if there will be a fee, is. It's really looking at short-term rentals and how they affect locals' ability to have their children and their grandchildren buy on our island. This has nothing to do with long-term rental.
Please,
Is she at the same meeting though? Like,
so please,
Towns donate land.
right.
okay, so please, let's let everybody have their comment, please, because that we do wanna respect one another's ability to speak. And as we know, there are different perspectives on this. Anything else, Susie?
Really?
No, thank you.
Okay, all right. Anyone else on Zoom? I didn't see any other hands up.
I mean, show us how this is gonna produce long-term rentals at affordable cost. Because even long-term rentals are not gonna be affordable for these people you're speaking of. Which is sad. You know, but it's not the same as it was. This is everywhere. This isn't Nantucket either. In Nantucket, it got waved out too.
So Chris made a point about policing the transfer station. I had a long chat with Frank McDonald at the weekend, and he was talking about different aspects of stuff at the dump. A few years ago, I followed a truck and a trailer across the Bath Bridge, all the way down into Georgetown, loaded with refuse, which I reported to Jim at the time. This is somebody who's coming out from somewhere, bringing their crap to our dump. Because our dump is a little easier than some dumps. And, you know, that's policing the dump. Stickers, where's your sticker? Or if you don't have a sticker, you know, do I know you? Frank was talking about people coming in who are short-term renters, and he cited a case last summer where he had 4 cars parked in there, and all they wanted to do was go and rifle through the mall. And it was filling up all the parking and et cetera, et cetera. Well, if those 4 cars, they didn't have stickers. So if you don't have a sticker, see you later. That's policing the dump. And there's 3 people at the dump most of the time. I think somebody could be doing a better job of that if they feel that's a concern. You also, the state of Maine went through a whole big thing about ADUs, and they passed ADU allowances. To my knowledge, this is prohibiting ADUs from even in the consideration. Well, the whole ADU thing was to create affordable housing. So, you know, everybody's comments here are spot on the mark, and it's just really overreach. It's over policing. It's another tax.
Okay.
May I ask Susie Bren?
And one quick, I just wanna, as folks are jumping in, if we could still identify ourselves, just for the folks on Zoom that might not see you behind my big
Yeah.
head.
So that was Marcus Italy, and this is Tiffany again, but so this is, and I'm sorry, what we wanted to do was to give you a sooner opportunity than we could do the larger meetings. And so we are having a select board meeting, and so we're not gonna be able to ask questions of each other. Though I know you want to ask that of Susie, but on the 28th, we will have, you know, I'm writing down the things that people are saying here, and we will.
Well, I think honestly, for the better of the entire room, I think we should ask Susie Wren to elaborate on what she means by her statement.
And I apologize for that.
Because she was part of this ordinance writing team from the committee that was in 2024. So there are many people in this room that didn't understand what she said. The mission statement alone, for the purpose of this ordinance, on the very end, says to minimize adverse impacts on neighboring properties in a manner that balances the long-term tradition of seasonal tourists with the need for year-round housing. Okay, well, your survey answered the question itself. You're not going to get more long-term year-round housing on this island because 44 people are closing their doors. Point blank. 44 people will be closing their doors.
And that's gonna affect this lady who's just retired. It's gonna affect her retirement. She's not gonna do a long-term rental. So what's she gonna do? She gonna sell her short-term rental? And who's she gonna sell it to? Well, she's looking to retire. She wants to get the most money out of it she can. So she's gonna sell it. And who's gonna buy it? It's not, again, like I said earlier, it's not the local guy who's working at the marina or the dock in the summer. It's gonna be an out-of-state person. That's not helping long-term rentals. It's not helping affordable housing. And you're affecting tourism dollars that come in because the people who would have stayed at her short-term rental, who would have purchased at the dock, who would have gone and bought food at the Five Islands Farm, or gone to the big marina, or gone to the gas stop.
That
They're not
employed
gonna
3
be here.
people,
That employed
3
people,
locals.
those locals now gonna be looking for work.
We're
And you've been
2
renting
years.
cottages for 40 years, and all of a sudden, we're not grandfathered in, paying 9%, you know, housing tax.
Right.
I mean, because all of a sudden you're gonna pull the rug out, otherwise we can't keep our cottages. Cause I really don't like having renters either, but it's the way you gotta do it.
We're 2
Every
years
week
too
you
late for
turn
this
them
issue.
over and, you know what I mean?
Yeah, we're 2
Yeah,
years
you
too
know,
late.
clean and fine.
And for the
It's a
folks,
nightmare.
online, that's Chris
Yeah,
White
but
in the back.
this affordability is delusional, Joe.
Okay, and let's not talk over each other, please, because we won't be able to hear each other. Go ahead, Chris.
I just like to add one, Chris Martin again. I'm just more concerned with, one thing that concerns me is the rationale for this. You know, the points that have been made, and they've been all brought up here time and time again. Like I've already cleared the water, the transfer station, resources, whether they be natural or services. And then also, you know, a big one that I've heard come up here that makes a lot of sense too, is safety. You know, we want to make sure our short-term rental people are safety. Well, why don't we want to make sure What about the mother and father with 3 young kids in their house? We're not gonna go check their fire extinguishers and make sure their home has proper egress? And, you know, make sure all of these other things that have been claimed for, that are unsafe. I mean, I would be devastated to see anyone in our town, you know, be caught in a fire in an unequipped home with poor fire, you know, smoke detecting systems. But I think it would doubly sting if it was you know, a local mother and father who have 3 kids that attended Georgetown School who didn't have adequate smoke detection, or, so I think that you're really singling out, and to me, it's not. I think it's on the surface between the water claims and the services claims and the safety claims. I think whoever sat and wrote this ordinance thought of what are triggering things that I can say to make people agree with this that should apply to everyone. Everyone should want to have adequate smoke detection in their homes. Everyone should want to have a safe set of stairs and a deck that they're not going to fall through. You know,
right.
Especially for their neighbors and their people that they grew up with. I mean, you know, I think if someone in short-term rental has a substandard deck and their guests fall through it and hopefully aren't gravely injured, they're going to be punished. All right, they're going to be punished with a lawsuit and dropped by their insurance companies. And, you know, and I agree with whoever brought up about insurance companies. I think insurance companies are probably doing plenty to police the safety of these buildings.
I'm telling you, it's punitive and spiteful, this whole thing.
Is a hand up.
All right, so let me take Susie Wren and then I'll take you, Chris.
Thank you.
There's a lot of Chris's in this room.
There is a lot.
Just saying.
Sorry, yeah.
Go ahead, Susie.
Yeah, so I didn't write the ordinance. I had nothing to do with the ordinance. I was part of the large group of people, 32 people in this town who were trying to make sure that our local people and their children and their grandchildren could stay here and have houses to buy or rent to stay in their professions. We encouraged our group, GAHI. We encouraged the survey through the planning board to look at how many properties were being rented. And that was part of the outcome of the COVID era, where there were people from a long way away buying properties of elderly people who were moving and turning them into lights out for half the year. This is happening up and down the coast. We did not create this. We are just trying to react to it. And we are just trying through our group, which tried so hard to stay effective in this town and couldn't because we didn't have enough volunteer hours. We're trying through the planning board, who's done an amazing job of doing a survey of these short-term rentals, to find out what is happening with the properties that are being rented. There has been no determination of what a fee might be. Many towns up and down the coast, and we've done lots of research, and Dave's sitting right there in the corner, he can support me on this, about other towns that have done the research, and they might be registering these short-term rentals but not charging for it. They might be registering these short-term rentals and charging $20 a year to help the code enforcement officer be policing the situation if they must. But it's really to protect the generations that want to stay on the island and remain doing the jobs that are part of staying on the island. So please, I did not write the ordinance. I think it's a spectacular suggestion of what we could look at but the select board has not decided what the fee might be and what the parameters will be. It's a start. And I believe that the planning board and all of its volunteer members have worked incredibly hard to research what else is happening. We're not recreating the wheel here in Georgetown. There are so many communities up and down the coast that are just like us. We're being bought out in lots of ways by people with more money than we even can consider. And that's raising our taxes. It's not our individual members who live here, including me and the 32 people who were on the Gahi committee, that are trying to do anything to any of you. So I would hope that we could all imagine that we could work together to make it safe, to make our neighbors safe if people are coming from out of town every week. And we are all here tonight, and we will be here again on the next meeting to talk about what that fee might be, what the regulation might be, if the regulation is important. So I don't think attacking each other helps. And I've never tried to attack anybody. So thank you for hearing me out.
Thank you, Susie. Yes, Chris.
Yeah,
Chris Dumas.
Susie, I'm sorry I cut you off earlier, but I find your commentary and your whole thing very out of touch and very passive aggressive. I'm sorry, but that's my take on it. I think you talk about public safety. What about someone that got tore apart by a dog by a full-time resident and that person continues to get a dog? What about, I know, right? Right?
Yeah.
I'm a law enforcement officer. You talked about public safety. Like, seriously, how unsafe are a bunch of upper class out-of-staters that are gonna?
I did not create the ordinance. I did not talk about public safety. Do not put words in my mouth. Thank you. I'm trying to be as helpful as possible. So I think it's good for all of us to care about each other as human beings.
That's irrelevant. Everything you just said is a big word salad. Everything you said is a word salad. You're not listening. You have a room full of longtime people that have been here longer than I have here. Generationals, the McMahons, the Browns, the Mitchells, the Martins, and they're all telling you that this seems punitive and this is wrong, and you're sitting here and you're just coming back at us with the same narrative. And I guess that's not productive, but that's my observation.
Thank you,
I'm done.
Chris. And all I would ask is that you just direct your comments, public comments, and
Yep.
not at each other. I think that's gonna be helpful to the process.
Thank you, Ari.
Luke in the back and then Clara again.
Just wanted to respond that I think we're all pretty wound up about this because ordinance 3.3 and 3.4 were a direct attack on STR owners on one of them, and you're taking away our income with just a stroke of an ordinance. That's just the beginning. And you're saying it's for the public good, but you're taking away our income. Yeah, and it really affects us.
And we are hearing that loud and clear. We are hearing that loud and clear. And that's why we asked for feedback. You know, the survey went out and then there was no, I don't know that,
Another thing I wanna
but that's
say
good.
is that it's specifically discriminatory against the smaller affordable rentals. So we're trying to, this all started out with trying to make affordable housing, and what we've targeted in this ordinance is affordable rentals. So how are we helping affordable people? Now they can't go on vacation too. Doesn't make any sense.
Okay, I said Claire was next. I'm sorry. She didn't get to go a second time. Go
And
ahead,
could I
Claire.
just make a quick note too? I
Yes,
just want
yeah,
to
yeah.
impress upon folks that typically aren't coming to every select board meeting. We typically don't have people speak 3-4 times. So I really just want to impress. We want to hear what folks are having to
This-
say.
Thank you.
This
It is
needs to
appreciated.
hear from you, right?
Thank you.
If you
Thank you.
cannot
That's
see that in our words and our actions,
Want to be clear.
Thank you.
Thank you.
we're doing that right now.
And listening.
So, and so Clara, then Jim, because I had already called on Clara. Okay. Go ahead, Clara.
Clara Evans again, yep, so, I think that I think we're all doing a very pleasant job of being cordial with one another. I think we're taking heat from our heart and our head, and we are delivering ourselves very well. So I don't think that the comment that was made is reflective at all at what's actually happening in this room. I'm proud to see people on all aisles here trying to speak up for our community. I think that the committee who started this research and did so much research could share and enlighten us on all the other possibilities that were looked at and crossed off the list to determine that this is the correct way to go. If it's being done up and down the coast, if we are unlike all kinds of other towns, then does that mean that all up and down the coast in all other towns, this is the only option that's being taken forward? Because I actually know that's not true. So I would like to see options, incentivizing options, not punitive options. I also want to just mention, I don't think that it's been heard or been said. Winterization, speaking to KPA, there are many homes on Kennebec Point that would not be able to be rented year round. So if the town cares, and this is coming from a place where we're all just trying to take care of one another, then we need incentivizing programs. We need tax cuts. We need grants that will help people take better care of their home if they want, prepare their home for long term if they want, not tell you that you have to do it or sell, because that's what's going to happen. And again, I just want to say, like, I'm not even in a position where I have a short-term rental at the moment, but I'm coming from that position and I have 2 little girls. And at some point, I'm going to be back in that position. So we need to be thinking about the future, right?
Okay, so Jim Coombs and then Chris. and then Bill.
Jim Coombs, and I came to the meeting really to learn. And I think I agree with before, I think it's been very constructive. And I've learned a lot. I'm very sympathetic to all the arguments. And I don't mean to be defensive about how we do things at the transfer station. But on the question of stickers, minor thing perhaps to most people, but as landlords, do you take it on yourselves to, especially in the short term, to educate people or let them know about the transfer station? Because I can tell you, in the summer, it easily doubles or more the traffic. We all have experienced the traffic issues. And in terms of getting stickers, people have shown us every possible iteration of a sticker.
All the colors.
Now, from cell phones to letters to, and is your sentiment that we would rather we just, that's not a valid sticker, can't come into the dump.
No.
What's gonna happen to your, this is a real question. What would you prefer? Do you want to handle the trash issues yourselves? Or do you want the town to take it on? It's not always a cut and dry situation down there.
Okay, and let's not get into the trash issues tonight. It's a super valid question but Todd, go ahead.
Todd McMahon, what's the purpose of having the stickers then, if they're not being utilized?
Okay.
Well, we do use them, but
You know,
if I start asking everybody in this room for a sticker, We know.
That's your job, that's what you work there, that's, you know.
Yeah, but we know.
Great job,
we know.
Jim.
You're doing so
Yeah.
good.
Okay, we're gonna, if we can just back away from the stickers, but it's a valid discussion and we're gonna do Chris and then Chris.
Yeah, I just wanted to add one on a personal note. So in 2019, I have a long-term rental. I bought a house that was out behind that came up for sale and I bought it and I long-term rented for almost 7 years. And the recent tenants just moved out and I'm selling. Because it was a very miserable, horrible experience. And I have no interest in doing it any longer. And short-term rentals are far less frustrating, and so to think, I just wanted to, like I said, I keep coming back to the premise and the underlying, the underlying like causation of this. And I don't think there's a lot of substance behind it. I think it's just thoughts that people have, but nothing to back it up. I have a long-term rental and I'm getting rid of it. I'm not turning it into a short-term rental. I'm selling it. It probably won't go tenant, maybe it'll be affordable for someone, hopefully a resident of the town. But, just because you say you get rid of short-term rentals, that doesn't equal long-term rentals. It's just not, I think that's a very naive assumption that even a somewhat substantial percentage of them would turn into long-term rentals. I think a lot of people would just be like, nope, not even interested.
Thanks for sharing your perspective, Chris, and I think John, you had your hand up. Go ahead, Chris.
I hate to see stickers
Can you,
come apart.
Okay.
I'm Chris Coons.
thank you.
And his wife. We've had many debates at home. I used to clean houses here in Georgetown. I did that, some of you know that, for years. And some of those houses have turned every week. And I found that to be a wonderful aspect of the community, quite frankly. Sometimes there are folks that came in that perhaps weren't as much of a contribution to the community as others. But I just thought the summer just made things vibrant and new people coming to town and going to the restaurants and so forth. So I think that's very, very good. And Jim, he has a special challenge. And we've had many debates about this. And I came up with many ways of making sure that a short term, a 1 or 2 or 3 week summer person could get in there and have a sticker in hand, basically, if not on their vehicle. And I hope the sticker part won't become an issue at all. It's there are ways to make things like this work in a community like this.
Okay,
And we're all willing to do that.
And that's a great way to close the sticker discussion. Thank you. It's all important, but tonight we got a job to do and we're doing it. Go ahead, John.
John Thibodeau again, Sigwin Road. I won't mention stickers one bit.
Thank you.
What I think is kind of ironic is that, and this is not a personal attack, just to paraphrase.
There's comments.
Right, just to paraphrase Ms. Wren, when she said that we're not reinventing the wheel, we're throwing a 5th wheel onto a car that doesn't need it by doing this ordinance. And we're essentially adding things, we're duplicating, we're adding more bureaucracy where it's not needed. Because we've already passed, a building permit was applied for and obtained. We had the septic expanded to allow for the additional bedrooms in the house. If you take out all accessory units, all tiny homes that were already approved, you're gonna start, they're gonna be leveled. They're gonna be McMansions coming in. You're pretty much adding on layers upon layers of bureaucracy that are not needed. And if you wanna be really honest with it, I make a whole lot less money with my long-term rental parents than I did when I was doing Airbnb. And they know it. Because they joke about it, they've joked about it in the past, and it's like, why not have somebody here adding to, guess what, my profitability, my ability to pay my taxes, my ability to live here on this island, become friends with people on this island, work for the fire department.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah,
Chris.
I mean, I really feel like this just follows some kind of fairy tale narrative. This whole ordinance, it's not real. I mean, the people that are actually having to scrape by and keep their houses and all that, it doesn't even address that. I mean, maybe the town could be insurer of last resort like California. If we don't get our property insurance, in case the safety police come, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Okay. One last public comment, and as Tiffany started to, well, Lauren, okay. Thank you, Tiffany, for giving that up.
I'm from the Francis family, Francis compound, and
Yes.
we represent a lot of short-term rentals. And as I get older, I thought I would become more stubborn, but I'm actually a little more prone to see things less black and white. So I do agree with a lot of the work that has gone in, and oh, well, I can see if I was on the planning board and I did a lot of work, and then all of a sudden people got involved and wanted to tell me all the wrong things I did, but they weren't around to, participate in earlier. I can see how that could, rankle the members who put the work in. So that being said, I do think that, it's a little too much overreachy. I think, there's simple things that could be done that could assuage a lot of the issues, like grandfathering things in, having, certain exceptions for, like, for example, all the places we represent, which is 113. They were all designed to be seasonal rentals, they're not long-term rentals. Nobody's gonna be living long-term in a treehouse, and there's not exceptions for that. There's secondary dwellings that are gonna be banned, it's a problem. So I feel like there's a lot of things that, respecting that we have, okay, it's not the end of the world to do something, to take some steps in that direction or get a handle on, what issues there are. While at the same time just leaving plenty of space for, all the concerns that people in the room have brought up tonight. Anyway, that's it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And since we've given all these folks, we have one last, that was Lauren Francis. And he talks a little softer, so we just announced that somebody asked. All right, anybody left on Zoom that would like to close out the public comment from the Zoom side of things? Okay, I do see names, and again, I apologize on behalf of our entity, if for those of you whom we did not, and I'm not sure that we had the suggestion that Clara gave, which is a good one, automatically acknowledging your comment. So but we have received all of your comments that you've sent in to the town office. If you've sent them to any of us directly, we have forwarded them on to the town office. They are not available now, but we will make them. I think our plan is to make those available for the 28th. And we're just trying to sort out whether or not you want to be publicly identified. That's really, but I mean, clearly you're comfortable with it here and folks are comfortable there. There's been a request for us to read the comments in the chat. And so Tyler, will you do that? And then we're going to get on with the rest of our meeting that does address some ordinance issues, but it is primarily associated with the STR.
Lisa Sabatine at 7:02 noted we were muted and back. Mike McDermott asked that we ID speakers. TTTA McMahon, I believe Terry McMahon possibly said, I too was wondering about Susie's point. Sharon noted this is getting out of control. TTTA McMahon said again, how are short-term rentals unsafe? Jen Dobransky said, thank you, Susie. Someone said, don't talk over Chris, Susie. Again, it was out of control. It may be helpful to have a meeting to review all the data. And Jesse Graham said, summer usage is likely increased because of families visiting as well. Summer people are in their homes. One Zoom user unnamed said, I had the opportunity to purchase the home I grew up in a few years ago and feel incredibly fortunate to have a place where my children and grandchildren can gather and make memories together. The short-term rental apartment has also been a tremendous help as I work to renovate my childhood home. My dad, Ron Pinkham, has been a longtime fisherman in Five Islands, and it brings him great joy to see the house come alive again. Jess Pinkham, 106 Old Schoolhouse Road. Lisa Sabatine noted, we do not know what causes the increase in the traffic at the transfer station. Is it short-term renters or seasonal residents? Until we collect the data, we can't point fingers to any one group of users. Mike McDermott again asked who is speaking, and Jesse Graham said, can you read the chat? So I would note to folks as we move into the board meeting, the chat is a great log to capture ideas, but it's not something that select board members will participate back and forth with, because once they're in a meeting, it's a little bit hard to focus there, here and everywhere. So for what that's worth.
All right, can I just ask a clarity, point of clarity?
Sure.
From your comment, are you saying that everything that's been submitted to the board will be released at the meeting on the 28th? Or prior to, so that people can review them?
It would typically be prior to, we just wanted to make sure that, folks were comfortable to do that, and we didn't have the, turnaround. We were still getting comments to say tonight, are you comfortable? Because some people may, I've had people come up to me and say, I don't want my name used. I might be at the transfer station and they're saying that to me. So I'm mindful of the fact that people are giving us feedback. Some are free to be identified, like when you sent in your comment, and others are concerned about retaliation or people yelling at them, or they don't want to be identified, that they have an STR. So we are mindful of all those things.
Sure, no, that
Okay.
makes sense. I just wanna make sure that the whole town knows in all channels possible that you have time still, if you can't be here on the 28th, to continue submitting your comments, questions, concerns.
It will likely be around the day or two before.
And for what it's worth, when we got to the planning and discussion regarding the community information night, we were gonna share that same point that
Right.
we want to hear from everyone, some of them 3 or 4 times in a row. So I think it's really important. And again, I appreciate everyone coming out tonight, and I know the board does.
Yeah, and this is an unusual one. Ordinarily, we would not be interacting because we can't, in a select board meeting, answering questions, you would have your comment. If you've been to any other meetings, that's how they're supposed to run. But it's important that you understand that we really want to hear these things, and we want to make sure to address a question like that, Claire, in real time, and not have it just sit in public comment. All right.
Thank you
So-
for doing that.
Sure,
Yeah,
of
thank you
course,
very much.
absolutely.
I know this is unorthodox, so.
Oh, it's
we
great to
appreciate
hear.
it.
Yeah, it is. We appreciate it. All right, so public comment is closed, and so, you should know before you leave, though, that nothing tonight is going to happen with the short-term rental ordinance, okay? So that's on hold, and
Wow,
that's
I think
why,
that was great.
we're having this additional
Yeah.
meeting.
Town is saying, what the fuck are you doing?
I can't stand REA.
Oh,
Hold on, folks, you are unmuted and you may not want those comments to be to everyone.
Yeah.
Yes, were you able to sign that?
Marcus, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. Nice to see you.
Good to see you. What are you doing over now? On the agenda,
Good,
that went
everybody.
out, we're going to talk about planning for the upcoming night. I would recommend some folks say, because we're gonna have a higher level view about the fees. I put this range down solely based on comments folks brought up tonight.
Yeah.
Just to be clear, that's not our thought.
Okay.
Yes, thanks, John.
Select board sets fees officially after town meeting, but we tonight wanted to have.
Pretty much everyone except that one woman in her own living room was on our
Doug
side.
Wilmore, you can
Okay, we're gonna
unmute
mute it.
yourself
Okay, hang
one
on, we're
moment. But in any event, the select board recognizing that residents probably would want to know where their mind is on fees going into the 28th. We wanted to have this meeting tonight. Tonight was really to try and get a bunch of information so we can make sure we're answering questions knowledgeably, factually, and
I
hearing.
think one of my biggest concerns is when I kind of did,
We're taking a break from the select board meeting because we are missing a Mitch.
as
A
to how
member
much
for a
an
moment.
average of what these fees are going to.
I'm gonna stand.
to be. When I saw, the AI generated thing,
Oh, absolutely.
it said 350 to 1,000, and then some towns were 2,000, and I thought, oh my
I
word.
see, and again, I think that
I
was.
just didn't know where we were
Well,
starting.
and
you
I
know?
think that again is part of the reason we wanted to have this conversation
good.
tonight, because I'm not speaking for the board, but I can say, having spoken to each of them, that range is high. and
Yeah,
very
thank
high.
God.
Any
I-
thoughts that could have been?
So nervous,
Well,
like sick about it, like, or,
No, we would never do that.
yeah, okay.
And
We would never do that. We're all working people too.
I appreciate the
Yeah,
apologize when you didn't talk
Yeah.
about it.
and you'll have it again.
I think it's so difficult when you have your mindset on what your retirement life could look like and what your family life could look like on the island.
Thank you. Yeah.
Makes you sad
And feel
thinking
free to
like,
stay. Now you got.
you know, my kids may not have the opportunity because I'm gonna sell out,
Right.
you know, and that would be devastating.
Sticking around.
I would like this.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, there's no seating. All right, so we are going to thank you again for giving us, we are gonna talk about that in a moment. Thank you, Susie, for that comment. That's correct. No fees have been set. All right. So we are gonna now, pivot over to our old business, which is our ordinances, and you just heard me announce a moment ago that we have held the planning board short-term rental ordinance, because of the additional processes we've added in here, including tonight's special meeting and then the informational meeting on the 28th. We will still have an August 14th meeting that will not be, focused on the STR, since we're doing it on bookends of the 14th. We've got to get a lot of regular support, select board business done on the 14th.
April 14th.
April 14th, yes, thank you. Did I say August?
Mhm.
Oh, gosh.
We're just looking ahead.
Yeah.
Oh, man, do you wish it was August? Since today felt like March this morning, just saying. All right, so let's move to the second one, which is what we just started, addressing, in particular, what the process will be. So we do have, and I'll say it again, April 28th is the informational meeting. That is when we will have, the benefit of having, some of our planning board members and our code enforcement officer there to answer questions, address some of the data that was, that was compiled from the, let's call it 450 plus survey, and then their own research into this issue. And so that will occur to the extent that they are able to answer the questions that are posed at that time. It will also obviously allow for you to give additional comment. And that will be at the school gym. It will obviously be a larger space, and we will also have a hybrid option still. So 6:30 and thereafter, we'll go right into our select board meeting off-site.
And one of the things
There.
I wanted to check in on, to
Yeah.
Clara's point, when it comes to public comments, given the fact that the select board will be meeting after, and we post agendas for select board meetings as well as the packet, it would make sense to me, just for everybody listening in and elsewhere, to include that correspondence on the agenda for the select board meeting, not the info night. They're the same evening, the same location. It's just a standard place on the website where we
Right.
have folks checking for information.
Right.
And for folks that are unaware on where that is, you'd click on town office and scheduled meetings. There's an upcoming select board meeting information section. I know the board knows this, but I'm more speaking to
Right,
the broader
absolutely.
audience. We typically post the packet of what things can be available. Some things like minutes that are drafts obviously won't be there at that stage. But I just wanted to confirm we're thinking, have that as select board agenda correspondence that again would be available to the public. We post it usually the day before the meeting, so it'd be that Monday.
Yes, that's right. So that'd be Monday.
Are you saying that all the, so far we've had 16 people write us, right? So all 16 letters that we've received from residents will be posted publicly
That is what I believe.
without consent from them, even though it was direct correspondence?
We could reach out to each of the folks. What I would say is that every one of those messages is technically accessible to the public under FOA as board business.
It is, but that takes effort. I just wonder if people may have emailed us hoping for it to stay between us.
Should we instead put out a blurb potentially tomorrow saying that comments received from this date forward will be included on the agenda? And if wanna,
No, because I wouldn't want someone to not reach out if they had considerations for fear of it being public. I think that we maybe should go back, speak to those 14, make sure that everybody's comfortable or not. And then I know it's more work, but I just don't think that we should.
my one fear is that I think as we approach the 28th, we are going to get a lot more public comments. And I would hate to have a back and forth with someone and then have it miss a cutoff. And so that's where I think.
It's all or nothing.
I think at this point, tonight, you've been public about the fact that they may be published. So I think from here forward, it's okay to assume that people who write in know that. I think it's the ones who wrote in not knowing that. It's like we announced at the start of our Zooms that this is going to be recorded, which is giving people notice. Well, we've now announced that going forward, it's going to be published.
Sure.
And I can go back to each of those folks and confirm. I know some of the comments that came through probably were not what folks wanted for prime time. In the same breath, I think most of the comments that came in were written in a tone and tenor where I don't think there would be the backlash that folks could fear, but I can reach out to them. But I don't wanna get into well, you can use part of what I said, but
Right.
not this piece,
Right.
because it
Could get very
creates a bad standard.
And I think that we
Yeah.
can, I think the three of us can look at those as well, Tyler, and say, this one seems questionable, so could you find out if this person's
Absolutely.
comfortable with it? Because I do, as you've heard me say a couple times in a couple different meetings, we are getting people stopping us at different places, and it's clear they don't want their name used. So I have respected that, of course, and
Yeah, we
simply-
wouldn't filter. There's no filtering coming from us. It's only coming from the resident.
Right. If they're saying, look, you should know this, but I don't wanna, in case I wanna have an STR, I don't want anybody to know that I'm doing this. And so I've said, well, can I share the sentiment, the
Right.
comments? Yes, you can share them, but just don't attribute them to me. So I think if we see one of the written ones, and don't think I've read one yet that seems that way, but we should look at them again.
And what we can do, I know on the 14th, 6 days from now, we don't want to necessarily go too far into the weeds on STRs.
Right.
I could come back with a better game plan now that
Yeah,
we're talking about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because fleshing it out in prime time, I think,
Yes.
won't be perfect, but let
Right.
me get back, because
Yeah.
I think we
Good.
can find a good solution.
Yeah, we can all think on it too. Thank you.
Yeah.
Great.
Okay, that's great.
Um,
That's one little tiny part of this whole
Yes.
evening. A moderator after tonight, do you think that that's?
Okay, well, let's think on that. That's another thing to think on. So, did you hear that, Kathy? Katie's wondering if we should have
Yes.
a moderator for the 28th? Okay, so we can,
I
we
think
can
it's a
think
good
about
idea.
And I mean, honestly, as town staff, I wouldn't mind recognizing the person and going.
Okay.
I know that I'd
I
love.
wondered what that
I'd
look
love-
was when.
I'd love,
had it that way.
I'd love to ask Nancy Kinner, but I also,
Yeah.
I don't know what her availability will be on the 28th. So we can go from there. A moderator, I think, doesn't hurt to help keep things going.
I agree.
I also trust Bob Trebona, Rufus Brown, and Mike Field to keep our ship on track, just saying.
Yeah.
But it
So-
might be helpful because they, Bob,
Be answering
yeah,
questions.
they'll be answering questions and he may be rifling through, or Mike or Rufus. So I think that makes sense. And also you've been here all along through this process. So you have a sense, of,
Historical.
yeah, just,
And I can check with Nancy too, just to see, but I don't mind doing it.
yeah. Yep, that sounds good.
And I would note that after that meeting, as you said, Aria, we'll be going immediately into the select board meeting where the board will ultimately make a decision whether or not it goes to legal.
Right.
And that's the next step in the process that the select board normally would take.
Thank you.
And if it doesn't go to legal, we could hold it again, but I would also advise the select board tonight that April 28th is really
Pushing.
the tail end of where we can end up in this process. And so if it needed more work to get to prime time, I don't know that it would make it to the warrant by the end of the month, just with notice requirements as well.
Right. We're cognizant of that. I think we've talked a couple times about all of the ordinances and the articles that would need to be drafted. Okay. So the next item is discussion about possible future fees. We heard a little bit of that, those concerns tonight. And as Tyler's noted, we set all the town fees at our June meeting after town meeting. And so we just want to, put a pin on it in this agenda item in tonight's meeting that, the possible fees, one of the concerns that was raised, would it be 250 to 3,000? That would never be a possible fee, speaking for myself. Susie Wren mentioned like $20. That's sort of what I had in mind. I'm not sure that, if we feel, that this should be something that we address at the next, after the informational meeting, or if y'all want to talk about it now. Go ahead, Kathy.
Aria, I would just like to know more from someone about what the fees are supposed to be doing. Why have fees?
Sure.
And that's just a comment right now, but when we do have the discussion, that's something that I would like to know.
Yes, okay.
Yeah, there has been communication about that, supporting the CEO.
Right.
If he has extra hours, or if it's the town office staff that has to do some extra work.
So it'd be like an administrative fee to underwrite that work.
And to be clear, that wouldn't be money that would automatically be going to those individuals. It would instead be helping supplement for the time that's being pulled from other pieces. And that's again, if we get there.
Right.
Right, so I'm not hearing that we're ready to address that tonight. The actual fees, okay,
I think we could ballpark it. Could we
okay.
not? Could we say it's gonna be between $20 and $50? I mean,
And then we also have to decide on the tiered system.
And I don't know, the chair of the planning board did raise his hand, and he might have something to add.
Yeah, go ahead, Bob, on this, because it's an agenda item, you are the chair.
Friends here still.
Yep.
We've written an ordinance.
Yep.
At your request. We haven't gone into, okay, who's gonna be doing the administrative portion of that? Is that gonna fall on the town office? You know, whether or not there's gonna be inspections, right now, the ordinance in its draft form is pretty lenient on that. We've bent over backwards to try and say, okay, the people that have short-term rentals, we respect you and we respect your honesty. We're not gonna send an army of people coming in and tearing apart your place looking for defects. If you tell us that you've got the stuff that you need on this piece of paper and you check it off and you sign it, saying, I certify that this is to the best of my ability.
The registry form he
Yeah.
needs.
Then, you know, we're not trying to add to the administrative load on the town because it's already overburdened. You know, the state just keeps piling crap on us being the town. For this requirement, that requirement, the other requirement, and so on and so forth. I've been with the fire department for over 20 years. My biggest fear is it's one of these days we are not gonna have a fire department because the state has legislated it out of existence with all of the mandates they keep putting on it. So I'm very sensitive to all of that stuff.
Sure, sure. Okay, I'm taking your answer and your comments associated with the fees and the administrative costs and the other things that we are leaving it intentionally open because we have to make a decision after we have the feedback, and I don't think we've heard from everybody yet. It doesn't seem like it,
I
so.
mean, you know, once somebody made a comment about $1,300 in fees, I would vehemently oppose that. I think $20 is probably too low. If you're gonna make it $20, then make it free.
yeah. The other thing that we brainstormed too was, a good neighbor packet, and the fees could offset the cost of that. It could be whatever that includes, you know, someone registers their short-term rental and it comes with something that tells a little bit about the 911 policies here and the transfer station and water conservation, and maybe it has numbers that are reflective for your property, for safety issues, you know, it could just be like this packet that goes to every short-term renter. And so the fees could offset some of that.
Okay. All right. So do you want to talk, Kathy, do you want to try to come up with, I want to make sure it's to include you in this discussion too. Do you
Sure.
want to try to decide a range tonight, ballpark it as Katie indicated?
Right now, I don't see a real strong use for a fee. I guess you have to have one. I think if it's high, it's gonna drive people underground.
Sure.
But I would be happy not having a fee.
I would say no fee. If we can go that route. But to know what the fee is for is good information to have.
Right. Yeah. All right, well, right now, I think we hold off on setting a fee and we look more at, the issue of, I mean, to the extent if this goes through, there will be some costs. And so we do have to manage that, and we're looking at the budget right now. And we're gonna be, passing the budget, at the, town meeting. So these are things that we will have to, address.
But to be abundantly clear, just to put out some of the concern in the community,
Right.
obviously not every concern, but We're not looking at the $350 to $1,000 Portland other Bar Harbor model.
That's not what I'm envisioning.
Right.
Doesn't sound like what you're
No.
envisioning.
I just making that clear for anyone who might listen on the YouTube after tonight as well.
Yes, that's a good point.
It
People do watch these afterwards. The other thing that, I think makes sense is, you know, you have some folks who might have, if you look at the data, you have some folks who have one, you might have people who have two, so whether there's a tiered system. So 1 to 4 is free, 5 to 8 is, you know, $50, I don't know, but that's something that we would need to look at. And I don't think there's a lot of multiple properties here based on my recollection of the data.
Right.
Any comments to that, Kathy, or any follow-up on this before we move on to off the fees section?
No,
Okay,
I don't think so. Well, if, you know, if the intention of this is of a fee, no, if the intention of this is to discourage people from out of town to coming in and buying investment properties, you can charge a higher fee or charge a fee for LLCs that are not resident on the island or something like that. And then don't charge the local community. That's just, I don't even know if that's legal, but that.
I know,
tiered system.
the out of state conversation keeps coming up and it's discriminatory, usually.
you know, what's interesting is we have resident and non-resident mooring fees.
That's true.
You know, same with shellfish license and, you know, so,
Hunting license.
yeah, hunting, so,
It
but
may
just in town.
depend in the language within an ordinance.
That's right, yeah, and that would be something that that our town attorney would catch.
Yeah.
So that we didn't.
Well, and the way the ordinance is currently written, 6.6 fees, permit fees shall be set by the select board.
Right,
And so that would probably be as we're approaching the fee schedule.
Right,
If all the things track and get us there, we could check in with Kristen at that stage
Yeah.
too.
and that's right, it's a good reminder that, just again, in case people are watching this after the meeting's over, we would not set this fee now anyway, because we don't do that until after June.
Right. We
Okay,
put it on here just to.
yeah, right, to
Ease
say
people's
that
minds.
it's not gonna be $3,000.
Yeah.
Okay, and that's not at all, that was not at all the intention from the planning board or that any of us understood was going to be an intended or unintended consequence.
And in the same breath, we can understand that folks without that information would go research it and
Right.
some of those fees would be a pretty scary total.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
That's a great point too.
Right,
go ahead.
And then we also had received some short-term rental draft applications and registration forms that I know community members had asked,
Right.
what would that look like as they weighed their impact? And so I think tonight,
This is the mystery.
The 4-4, yeah, I've got it in here somewhere, but let me look on the view, please.
but effectively, the planning board put these together after our last select board meeting, asking them to do so.
Yes,
There's a more recent revised form here, but as we've navigated this process, before putting stuff up on the website, we wanted to give the select board a chance to weigh in, offer any tweaks if they wanted to at this stage. Or we could put up and say, this is the draft, just so folks can visualize, but want to keep us in the driver's seat on making those decisions.
And Kathy, you have it?
yeah.
Have a copy?
I do. Tyler sent it out yesterday or the day before.
It's actually a
And-
newer one.
And there's a new email that came through, Kathy, that's been a little bit
What?
revised.
About, was it maybe 6?
6:45, it came
6:45.
pretty close.
Yeah, I didn't get that.
So I will do, while Kathy's looking at that, I mean, I'm inclined to just, you know, we're putting up the ordinance and we've been asked for these registry forms in our last meeting. I want to thank the planning board for drafting and redrafting, and I'd be inclined to just have them both be part of the packet that goes up, but that's just me.
I could put those where we've got the survey data and some other things on the website that I know folks have been diving in. We could include those there as drafts.
You know, one is longer than, and, you know, one is shorter than the other. And so,
One is for a renew, if you
Yeah.
fill out.
oh, this renewal, I see, yep.
First time you're registering for a short-term rental.
So the
The
original,
short form would be in the years after that.
Right, the renewals.
Because
Yeah.
it's an annual thing, it's like getting your
I'm seeing that now.
license plates.
and the difference between, The only difference between these are this applicant statement,
Oh, yes, okay.
certifying that the
Yeah.
information submitted.
Yeah, that's right.
And
So
then
those are the 331s one.
the newest one, add that shortened.
I have a bit of a problem just because we don't require people who have long-term rentals to fill out the form. And I would also add that there are houses that, particularly at Bay Point, that I know, because I know Bay Point, that aren't on the road. You have to go through easement. So I don't know how you do a street number. I mean, there needs to be one for fire safety and all, but you know, they're not on the road. People in the old days used to walk around, so.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
So would you like us to put both the latest version, which is the 4/4, today's date, of the regular permit application, and then, of course, there's a 4/4 rental permit renewal, which is the short
And
I think
just-
it's part of the package.
one. Okay.
And I just note, not to interrupt rudely, bad
That's
habit.
okay. All right.
Putting these on the website again will make clear they are drafts.
Yes, please do that.
Because should this go forward, should we go to legal, there could be portions that legal counsel amends in that ordinance. If we get that far, which then could obviously change
Yeah.
the form, so.
We
but at least
also
we-
heard, sorry, I was doing it, Tyler, I apologize.
That's okay. It's a little harder when it's Zoom and.
Team Pisces, it's okay.
That's right.
Go ahead, Kathy.
We heard from people tonight who have alternative water and septic systems, overboard discharge and cisterns, which are two things that weren't mentioned in the ordinance. I'll just throw that out there.
Thank you. All right, so we've agreed, it sounds like, that this will go in the packet, both of these.
Yeah.
Okay.
As draft.
Right, and he'll have the watermark
Yes.
on there noting that they're draft. Okay.
And I can put up a little blurb as well, just to point out, these are to visualize the process, not we're wed to exactly where things were placed.
Right, and the select board also has a chance to edit before it goes to legal.
Yes.
Right, yes, and then, so yes, Bob, since you're the chair, go ahead.
The initial application. It's basically.
The one you wrote?
Yeah, it's
Front back.
basically 2 pages. The latest one is.
Yeah,
Oh,
the
the
4/4, the dated 4/4, yes.
Yeah, 4/4.
Yeah.
I tried my best on that, I'm not the best wordsmith in the world as far as formatting all this stuff. My goal was to have that all on one page. It bugs the living hell out of me that we got all that
Well,
stuff
there's a
on the
lot of
front page.
information on it.
You got all that stuff on the front page and then it's on the back page where I sign it. That just annoys me. So there may be some formatting changes on that.
Okay,
To try and either spread it out more.
Mhm.
Or crump it up a little bit so that you can get everything on one page.
But in terms of the content,
It's gonna stay the same. As far as I'm concerned.
so we'll get those up on the website tomorrow.
yes, let's get those up on the website tomorrow. Okay.
Thank you,
With the
Bob.
pack.
And you pointed out the 2 pages, not me, so. Wink, wink. Sense of humor. Terrible.
All right, so we have, and so moving on to our next agenda item. We have received back from legal, from our legal counsel, the town's, who represents us as an entity. Some proposed, edits and revisions to the, current draft of the building and demolition permit ordinance. So this is an existing ordinance that, has proposed amendments, and let me pull that up. And also on the minimum lot size ordinance and the shoreline zoning ordinance. And so those, and you have already sent those back to the planning board,
Yeah.
is that right? Okay, great.
And the planning board will be meeting with council, I believe, next week to go over those specific, some of the changes, questions around grandfathering, et cetera.
Yeah,
Mhm.
okay, great. All right.
And
And so that's next Wednesday. For those, here's a good opportunity to remind folks that all of any town committee, and certainly all the elected boards. So TOPMB is an elected board. school board's an elected board, select board's an elected board. These are all public meetings. The planning board is, also a public meeting, and so if you, you can feel free to attend those meetings, and, they have put in quite a many extra meetings that you've attended in, through this process, and so, but these will be, next week's meeting will be only associated with these three ordinances, the building and demo, the minimum lot size, and I'll finish my sentence here, the shoreland zoning as it relates to the revisions advised by council.
Right.
Advised to us as the client, and then us back to the planning board. Okay, all right.
And that's on the 15th.
Right, so I don't wanna mislead anybody that anything about short-term rentals gonna happen on the night of the 15th, it's not.
But there was riveting stuff in the building and demolition permit ordinance, minimum lot size and shoreland zoning.
Thanks for that plug. Thanks for that plug. All right, anything, Kathy, you have any, questions, follow-up comments about those three pieces that did advance? So,
Right.
again, we are making sure that everybody's aware of the process that happens with each and every change that happens in town. We vet it, we ask for community engagement, we invite you to the meetings. We're trying to have an informational meeting for everything, and you're gonna hear us say that in a moment. It happened with the fire department, with EMS billing. It's gonna happen again next week, April 16, with fire department EMS billing. It happened recently with the working waterfront proposed ordinance, which we're gonna talk about in a moment. Of course, now we've added an informational meeting around the STR for later this month. So on that note, the working waterfront group met and finalized its work. I think we have Mike Farina still. Yes, we do. Thank you, Mike. And those group of volunteers, which includes John Jones and Pat Burns and Marissa McMahon. And so doing their own drafting. And now we need to decide as a board whether or not we're going to hold that and make our own revisions, go ahead and send it on to council. Or what's the third option?
Directly to the hearing.
That's right, direct to the public hearing, which now won't be till May 26th.
Yes, we'll set that in a few minutes.
Okay, great, thank you.
What I'd say about this working waterfront ordinance that came through, I would just advise that I do expect Kristen to have some substantive edits when it comes to some of the legalese under the purpose section, but there are areas that I think she could definitely strengthen as well. So I just wanted to flag, with those coming back and with the narrow time frame that we're gonna have, I don't believe with those edits, we would send those back to the working waterfront work group like we did with the planning board. Otherwise, they had a task to send it on to us. It's now this board's document to do with what it would like.
Okay.
And I just wanted to share that expectation now.
Yes, I think that's right. I don't, Kathy, I'd like to hear from you, about, do you have any question about that? Or do you think we should send it back to working waterfront, assuming they would take it? Mike might be sick of,
After
hearing
legal.
from us. Yeah, after legal. Go
I
ahead,
think
Kathy.
I think it could go forward. To me, it sounds a lot like a sentiment or a proclamation. But I think that it's a good thing. I think we should be a working waterfront. I have a question in 5C about easements or no, footpaths that property owners should be aware that the working waterfront people may be accessing existing footpaths through their property. Is that an easement or is it a handshake kind of a thing? What if a new owner decides
It's a handshake. It's a handshake because it's recognizing the way that the spirit behind that sentence or those couple of sentences is that it's recognizing that current, if it's my property, I'm letting people digging worms and digging clams go across my property. If I have to leave that property, I sell, the next owner may not be as willing to do that. But if they buy and my broker indicates that, here's the ordinance or here's what how this town rolls and this is the expectation, you know, that at least would, hopefully leave that access open to our working waterfront, friends here in town.
I'd like to be more legally, more clarity on the legality.
I'm sure we'll get
what
it.
that means.
Well,
I'm sure we'll get it.
in the way I read that more myself, Kathy, was more of the proclamation resolution.
Right.
This is the feel of the town.
Right.
Versus saying, Aria, you have to let people go through your yard. We couldn't do that.
We wouldn't do that.
I
Recognizes it.
I would note that section L and section M particularly are probably the closest to actions that the town would be requiring folks to take, which is what really gives this the ordinance bearing.
Right.
Whereas the rest of it kind of helps set the scene.
Right.
So.
Yep, and we know that, Attorney Collins will take a look at this and, give us the legal analysis. And, you know, there's obviously, this is her area of law, it's her expertise, so we'll then take our next steps from that.
Thank
So-
you. I think it should go forward.
Yeah,
Right.
so I'm taking Kathy's, this should go to legal as a motion to go ahead and send it on to our legal counsel.
I would
Okay.
make the motion that we send this proposed ordinance on to legal. And I would thank the working group that put it together. I think it's very good.
They also devoted a lot of time and a lot of hard work. And so, yes, I agree. So all those in favor?
And that is unanimous.
Okay, so that one goes on to legal. We are wrapping up this meeting for those of you who are wondering. New business, we have our updates to the town meeting timeline. And so, I think the three of us know, but we'll just cement that knowledge here that, given how we have incorporated some extra steps into this short-term rental process, we have made certain that those who, including Mary McDonald, our finance director, and Bob Trebona and the FAC team, know that we are ready for them on April 14 to review the budgets. And just as you know, we've said before, 1 to 3 of us at different times have been involved early on in this FAC budgeting process, and so we are hopeful to make that a more efficient presentation because none of this information will be new to us. And so that's been helpful, I think, in the process. So anybody have questions about the FAC budget presentation, or that's going to happen on April 14 as part of our regular meeting?
One clarification that we discussed at FAC, I just note the school budget won't be finalized until shortly thereafter. And
Right.
so I just note that that portion obviously is open, but with them being an elected board with their own budget processes, that really won't impact the full presentation that we're gonna be getting from Bob.
Yeah, and I assume because Elaine will make that budget presentation at their hearing on May 11.
Yes.
Okay, great. Elaine and the other two and their finance director, Kathleen, and probably the school principal will all be doing that. Okay, so then we've got that on the 14th, and then the setting of the ordinance public hearing date. Tyler,
So-
those are options.
So we had previously set the ordinance public hearing date in our budget timeline document for May 5th. By putting in this not working waterfront, the short-term rental community information night on the 28th, even if we decide to send it on to legal, if the board does that evening, there is no way we can meet the public notice requirements of 10 days to let folks know when the public hearing is and be able to read the language for May 5th. Unless the 10 days aren't even there. And so my recommendation is that we move the public hearings to May 26th, which is a select board meeting. I say that's my recommendation, but I do just want to inform the full board. That is a very tight window to get the warrant done as well, based on the decisions you make following public hearing. To include, that would be the night the board would ultimately be approving the warrant. So I would say if after public hearing, it was determined we weren't moving forward with the solar revisions, I'm using that because they're the least controversial
least
right now.
controversial, right.
If that were the case, we'd obviously delete that portion off of the warrant. I'd need to take a minute or two to update things. So May 26th would be those hearings. I did secure that date with the school at 6:30. So we'd start a little bit earlier. The select board, like we're doing on the community info night, would meet immediately thereafter.
So we do the ordinance hearing first and then go
And then
right into our
select
meeting.
board.
Yep,
And I would say that our town budget hearing is on May 14th.
right.
In the event that we didn't move forward with some ordinances or otherwise, the others would be ready earlier.
Right.
But I think we want to set a date because the community, we want to make sure everybody has those dates. So instead of leaving it to be determined, the recommendation is May 26th. But please, everyone be available that night to sign warrants and so on, because after that, Citizen Tribuna will be headed out a few days later to post around town.
Yeah, and one of the reasons that we wanted to give enough time is because we were aware that there are full-time residents who are not here for large pockets of time that have feedback that they've wanted to give us on the short-term rental ordinance. So it's it's a mixed bag. We are taking it to the very end, but we're doing that as a necessity to ensure that we have the ability to be as inclusive as we can. Anything you want to say on that, Kathy? Have we captured
No,
that discussion we have?
I guess I just have a what if the short-term rental ordinance comes back from the lawyer with a lot of recommended changes. What does the planning, does it go back to the planning board and will they have time to turn it around to meet the
So-
schedule?
The select board, Kathy, would have the authority to send it to the planning board. The select board would also have the authority to accept or reject those edits from legal counsel. I very rarely say we should reject an edit from legal counsel,
No,
but
yeah,
technically we have that authority, we just would not use it. I would say if there were a large number of edits that came back that this board was not comfortable with making, that would probably mean there'd need to be more time and it would miss town meeting.
it would pause the process.
Right, so,
It would pause the process. We just can't, we're not gonna rush anything.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we've all said that multiple times.
and I do think that with this timeline now being pushed back kinda into the extra time, we really wouldn't have the opportunity to send it back to the planning board this year, whereas ideally, that would be a great process to go through,
Sure.
but for what that's worth.
I think it's really important to get more information, which we're getting from the people who spoke tonight, and we'll get more information from the planning board as well, I'm sure, as they answer some of the questions.
That's right, and it's not unlike what we've just said we're gonna do with working waterfront. If that comes back from legal with edits, we're gonna have to make those edits or pause that a year.
Okay.
Just. We need to be as deliberate and careful as possible when we're making major changes
I
like
agree.
this to our town, okay.
So do we want to make a motion to set public hearing dates for May 26th at 6:30?
Sure, I will make a motion to set the public hearing date for May 26th at 6:30.
Second.
I'll second that. Okay, thank you. I'll let Kathy second that, best she does.
Yeah, I second.
I'm the chair. All those in favor?
And that is unanimous. We will update the calendar in the morning.
Great, thank you. And thanks, Tyler, for all the lead work. Getting the venues for these additional meetings, getting all the planning done. Long
All those
day.
timelines.
Long day. Yes, thank you. My words are failing me today.
I will
Thank
say.
you both for running a really good meeting tonight. I think it was complicated, but I think every voice was heard, and I thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah. All right, and with that, we are back to public comment. And we've got, there's 2 left in this room.
Good.
2 people standing. Do we have any public comment on Zoom, in the Zoom world? And, as I understand it, what we have learned in our training, Kathy, public comment is supposed to be related to the agenda items that are
Right.
notified. We've been a little bit more loose with that, but it's clear from MMA's legal counsel to us that we need to stick more to that, and we will, but so that you may see that change. that, if it's not on the agenda item, then we are not supposed to be addressing public comment if it's not on the agenda item, but there was a lot of good stuff on the agenda item, and I assume Susie wants to talk about something that was on the agenda tonight. So go ahead, please, Susie. Or did you mean to not have your hand up?
I don't know if this is appropriate to say, but it does seem like a lot of the comments were gotten because it wasn't clear what the intention was on the short-term rental ordinance. So if there were people who thought that it would be, you know, $350 to $3,000 for a fee, then there's a lot of emotion that's involved with that. And I think it would be a great idea, just my opinion, that before the 28th, if you want those of us who have been in it from the beginning and trying really hard to be rational and calm, that the right information gets out rather than an altercation. I think that causes people not to be brave enough to go to the actual meeting or to put their face on this screen. And I think that's worth thinking about at the select board level. And, you know, I'm a pretty brave individual, but I have pause after this. And that's a big thing to say. And those kinds of details of what the fee is about, if there's a fee, what the real potential reason for this ordinance is, that's a really important thing to let people know. And I would suggest that we don't try to put us in a position of attacking one another, because we all live on this tiny little island together. And we're all, those of us who stay up till this time of night, are really here for each other, not for ourselves. So that's what I wanted to say.
Thank you.
And I do see Chris in my peripheral here in a second. Any more on Zoom, since I'm looking at Zoom right now?
I feel like I need to say something.
Okay, Dave.
But I found it very, very confusing tonight. A lot of passion in the room, but not a lot of understanding, as far as I can see, in terms of people who have actually really read and understood what was written in that ordinance. A classic example is the number of times that people worried about not feeling as though they weren't going to be grandfathered when we specifically targeted that. But by the same token, when you get that kind of response, I can't help but think that we haven't done enough. You know, hindsight's 20/20, but obviously we haven't. The understanding of all of the things that we're trying to get done is not out there. So I guess that's a bit of an echo of what Susie was saying. And by the way, Susie, I thought you were very clear. So if we I don't want to speak to the planning board. This is my opinion. All right. I don't want to speak for the planning board, but boy, if we could just have some means of being able to better communicate versus the comments and concerns that we heard today, we'd have a better chance, I think, of creating better understanding. Thank you.
Sure. And so I will put a pin on that because we've said it a few times tonight. And again, this is an unusual meeting. Ordinarily, we wouldn't answer public comments. because this is intended to be a work meeting for us. But, if we didn't make it clear, the 28th is intended to be an engagement, a back and forth. There'll be, and assuming that our invited guests are still willing to do that and to answer the questions, to address the information and what the ordinance is intended to capture and what it's not intended to capture, whether that's grandfathering, fees, those kinds of things. But we will ensure that it is respectful. And Tyler, that's going to be you.
Right,
the moderator.
as the moderator.
And I
on
will
the-
help you.
On the 28th, we'll step in, because I think Susie makes a very apt point at the
I
end of the
agree.
day.
Yeah.
Wherever the passions are, we all have to
Right.
recognize this island is home, so.
Yeah, and we did say that in the beginning, and we will very much say that again on the 28th. We don't want people to be fearful of being squelched or having a disrespectful interaction with another member of our community, so.
Hey, Aria. This is Mike. I couldn't find where to raise my hand. But,
Oh, sure, no worries. Thank you for saying, we're still in public comment.
yeah, again, following kind of Dave's comment, and I've been sort of sitting here being very patient. We talked about it. In fact, you just said it, and I always think about, when I say what something is, I also like to also say what it isn't. And I think in terms of clarification, I think we go a long way. Maybe in also being very clear as to what it isn't. I was actually I already read the ordinance quite thoroughly before this meeting, but then I was reading it real time during the meeting. And I really, and again, it's just my feeble mind, I had a very, very difficult time connecting what was written with the kind of devastating outcomes people were talking about. I didn't see any of that written in there. It was difficult for me to understand how the provisions that are in that ordinance, which is very, how I like to be short and succinct, that was very short and succinct and right to the point. I couldn't connect those precise statements in the ordinance with any of those exacting, devastating outcomes people were talking about. And that's kind of just an observation. And maybe, talking about what it isn't as well as what it is may be helpful in that. And also, Susie, you took an awful lot of unnecessary heat.
Thank you, Mike. I'm sure that I feel like, there will be a lot of answers to questions that have arisen, both in the emails we've received and in the comments tonight.
And I also know that tonight, when we set up this special meeting, I'm glad we're here till 9 getting all the feedback, but the intention was really to tee us up for. So I think tonight, could we have been better prepared? I know that I probably could have, to anticipate the fact we had folks out into the hallway that indicate some of the passion. But I would say that we really went above and beyond tonight, I think, to make sure everybody had a chance to be heard.
Yeah, it's like I said, it was an unusual meeting, and I appreciate all that you did to get us ready for that. So, and yes, Bob Gravino.
Yeah, I'll be very short. I think whoever moderates the meeting at the end of April should really focus on the short-term rental ordinance. We talked about a lot of other things that I don't think needed to come up. I think that's what Susie was referring to. It was obvious. Well, I thought I knew what she was saying. I think we need to be on focus what it was we were talking about. We're not talking about the transfer station. We're not talking about long-term rentals. We're not talking about affordable housing. We're talking about the short-term rental. So whoever's moderating it was good tonight. Everybody got to talk, but I would hope that the next go around, it really focuses on that. Thank you. Good job, though. Nice job. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. All right. And that, I'm not seeing any more public comment. hands?
We got Chris.
Chris?
Yeah.
I wondered, okay.
So, yeah, I mean, I think you guys did a great job tonight, I think, and I honestly, my opinion of the public tonight was everybody was pretty respectful for something that's a pretty, obviously, a touchy hot button, subject for some. One thing I thought, and I'm gonna sort of disagree with the last comments, is I feel there is confusion in the fact of what, not so much what's actually written in the ordinance, but the rationale for it. I feel like the town has given rationales like affordability and resource protection. And those are the points I tried to keep bringing up. Why are we doing this? And let's make sure the reasons why we're doing it make sense. You know, when you start saying that you're going to, you know, we're trying to save the groundwater on the island, is that real? Is that a thing? You know, is that just a talking point that somebody came up? When we start talking about, you know, it'll bring, you know, long-term residents into town. Will it? Because if you're gonna make claims like that's what this ordinance is, and the town has made those claims. And, you know, in the ordinance, not specifically of what the ordinance covers, but the rationale for it. You need to be prepared to back up those claims that this is what it's gonna do. So I disagree in the fact that I think a lot of what happened tonight is a lot of people shooting holes in those claims. And I think it's people with actual kind of town experience in these who know that, you know, if you start limiting short-term rentals, it's automatically going to equal affordable housing for others, for families to come into the town, you know, which, you know, there's people who have different opinions on that. So I just think it would be important for the town to align on what is the rationale for doing this. Because I think that's important for the people to hear. The only other quick point I'll make is, I know we talk about, this select board here talks about maybe a $20 fee, maybe a $50 fee, maybe no fee. What makes me nervous, and we've all lived this, a $20 fee turns into a $200 fee really quick, and a $200 fee turns into a $2,000 fee really quick. But maybe not this select board,
Right.
but by the next select board, because it's a low hanging fruit. Oh, $20, that's nothing. We can change that to 200. Some of these people are making thousands or even tens of thousands a year. So as a person who always has their guard up against that, my concern would be is that, and maybe we write something in that it starts out, and I don't even know if this is possible, it starts out as a $50 fee and I can only go up by the cost of inflation every year or something like that. That would sort of give some people a little bit of ease that this can't go from a $20 fee to a $200 fee to a $1,500 fee in 5 years, because it happens. But thank you guys.
Thank you.
And those are great suggestions. I
Yeah.
would note that some of those things, the board couldn't bind a future board on an amendment that way.
Sure.
But I heard tonight with like Clara, some good suggestions about incentives.
Right.
Some of those we can't do as a town. I would love to have a firefighter exemption because I think that would help get us more firefighters. That would have to come from the state legislature.
You're gonna have to pay them.
I digress, Bob. But my point being that there were ideas out there that some of them would come on the state side, and there's always a chance with the next session where the town might be able to say, hey, Senator and Representative, would you consider a bill on these kind of things? So, but they're not necessarily tools that we have in our tool chest today. And I just share that because good ideas we love to hear. As I talk too much.
No, we all took notes, so.
Thank you.
Okay, Susie.
Well, I just want to say briefly that I don't believe that this ordinance is to squelch STRs. It is to know what they are, to make them safe, and to make a fee, if you make a fee, that's nominal to cover the inspections if you have to do them, but to make sure that the neighborhoods all are okay with what's happening. It's not to squelch them. It is not to say anything is bad. It's to say, let's make sure that it's okay with your neighbors and with the parking and with whatever is happening based on what you're doing with your property. And that goes to putting the information out there for the public to come to these meetings with real information instead of hyperbole.
I would note that some of the hyperbole tonight, at least on the vaguer agenda items, was to give the board broader range on having a discussion about fees based on some of the feedback. So I recognize that Pandora's box could lead some folks to have wide-ranging opinions, but I don't think we could have had an agenda item specific to this is what the fee is gonna be, because we haven't had a chance collectively to even have that discussion.
Mhm.
But I agree, Susie, I think that would help improve in the long run.
Thank you.
Any more public comment? None there, none here. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn if we're ready to move in that fashion.
Kathy is up.
Kathy,
I move that we adjourn.
And I'll second.
okay, all those in favor? That's unanimous. We're adjourned at 9:12. Thank you all so much for tuning in, for hanging in, and for your participation tonight. We'll see you on the 14th, again on the 28th, the 26th, and hopefully at town meeting on the 13th of June. Thank you.